She didn't just tell me to leave. She threw my suitcase out the door. It didn't just fall that it slammed into the ground, like my entire life had just been dropped and dismissed. And then she said it. You're holding us back, move out. Not angry, not emotional, just cold, certain, final. From my own daughter. The same child I held in my arms, protected from the world, gave everything for. And in that moment, I didn't feel like a mother, that I felt like a problem that needed to be removed. Stop for a second and imagine that moment. Imagine standing in your own home, looking at your child and realizing you no longer belong there. What do you do? Do you fight? Do you explain? Do you remind them of every sacrifice? Every sleepless night, every moment you chose them over yourself? Or do you do what I did and walk away in silence? Because sometimes when someone has already decided your worth, words don't change anything, they only break you more. I remember looking at that suitcase on the ground. It wasn't just clothes inside. It was years of memories, years of love, years of being needed. And suddenly, all of it felt invisible. I wanted to say something that I really did. So many words were stuck in my throat. You don't mean that. You don't understand. I did everything for you. But none of it came out, because deep down, I knew something painful. This wasn't just one moment. This had been building for a long time, silently, slowly, right in front of me. And I didn't see it, or maybe I chose not to see it. Tell me honestly, how many times in your life have you ignored the signs? How many times have you felt something was wrong, but convinced yourself everything was fine? Because facing the truth is harder than living in denial. I bent down slowly, picked up my suitcase, and my hands were shaking. Not just from the moment, but from everything it represented. I wasn't just picking up a bag, that I was picking up the reality that I had no place there anymore. And then I walked out. No shouting, no argument, and no emotional goodbye. Just silence. And sometimes silence carries more pain than words ever could. As I stepped outside, the door closed behind me, and with that sound, a chapter of my life ended. Not gently, not peacefully, but abruptly. I stood there for a few seconds, not moving, not thinking, just standing. Because my body was outside, but my heart was still inside that house, still holding on to memories, still holding on to a version of life that no longer existed. I walked to my car, slowly. Like each step was heavier than the last. I sat down, closed the door, and for a moment everything went quiet. Too quiet. I placed my hands on the steering wheel, but I didn't start the engine. That I couldn't. Because I wasn't just lost on the road, that I was lost in life. My mind started racing, replaying everything, her childhood, her laughter. The way she used to hold my hand. The way she used to say "Mom" with love in her voice. And then suddenly that voice was gone. Replaced by something I didn't recognize. You're holding us back? That sentence kept repeating in my mind, over and over again. And with every repetition, it started to feel more real, more personal, more painful. I asked myself, am I really a burden? Did I stay too long? Did I become something they no longer needed? These questions, they don't just hurt, they shake your identity. Because when your role in someone's life changes, you start questioning your role in your own life. Who am I if I'm not needed? What is my purpose if I'm not helping someone? Why does choosing myself feel so wrong? That's the trap. When you spend your whole life being there for others, you forget how to be there for yourself. And the moment you're left alone, you feel empty, lost, confused. I sat there for what felt like hours, tears slowly falling. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet, heavy tears. The kind that come from a place too deep for words. And in that moment, I realized something I had never admitted before. I was tired. Not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, deeply tired. Tired of being strong all the time. Tired of giving without receiving. Tired of holding everything together while slowly breaking inside. And maybe, just maybe, that moment didn't just break me. Maybe it exposed me. Exposed the truth I had been avoiding. The truth that I had built my life around being needed, around being useful, around being everything for everyone else. And in that process, I forgot something important. I forgot myself. Tell me honestly, when was the last time you chose yourself? Not out of selfishness, but out of self-respect. When was the last time you said, I matter too? If you can't remember, then you understand exactly what I felt in that moment. Because the pain wasn't just about being told to leave. The pain was realizing I didn't even know where I belonged anymore. That night, I didn't go to a hotel, that I didn't call anyone, I didn't even have the energy to explain what happened. I just drove. No destination and no plan, just movement. Because staying still felt too heavy. Every street reminded me of something, a memory, a moment, a version of life that no longer existed. And that's the hardest part, not losing people, but losing the life you thought you would have. I finally stopped somewhere quiet, turned off the engine, and just sat there. And for the first time in years, there was no noise, no responsibilities, no expectations, just me. And that silence, it was terrifying. Because when you're alone like that, you can't escape yourself. You can't distract your mind, you can't hide behind responsibilities. You're forced to face everything. Every emotion. Every regret. Every truth you've been avoiding. And that's where the real story begins. Backhand index pointing right if you're still here. Don't skip what comes next. Because what I discovered in that silence changed everything about who I am today. The next morning, reality felt heavier than the night before. Because now it wasn't shock anymore. It was real, permanent, unavoidable. I woke up in my CR.my neck stiff, my eyes swollen, my heart still carrying the same weight. For a few seconds, I forgot everything. But then it came back. That sentence. That moment. That door closing behind me. And suddenly I remembered I had nowhere to go. I reached for my phone, not because I had something to do, but because I was hoping to see something. A message. A missed call. Anything. But there was nothing. That silence, it hit harder than her words, because words hurt once, but silence, it keeps hurting. Again and again. I sat there, staring at the screen, refreshing it, locking it, unlocking it as if something would magically appear. Maybe she'll text. Maybe she'll say sorry, maybe she'll realize, maybe she'll call me back home. But nothing came. And that's when a painful truth started to settle in. No one was coming to fix this. Let that sink in, because most people spend their lives waiting for someone to understand, waiting for someone to apologize, waiting for someone to make things right. But what if that never happens? What if you keep waiting, and life keeps moving? That realization, it breaks you, but it also wakes you up. I stepped out of the car slowly. The morning air felt cold. Not just outside but inside me. Everything felt different. Even familiar places felt strange, like I didn't belong anywhere anymore. And that's the thing about emotional pain, it changes how you experience everything. I started walking. No destination, just walking. Because staying still meant thinking. And thinking meant feeling everything at once. Every step felt heavy. Like I was carrying something invisible. Something no one could see, but I could feel with every breath. Memories started coming back again. Not just the good ones, but the ones I ignored. The moments she seemed distant. The times her tone changed. The small signs I brushed aside. And suddenly everything started making sense. This didn't happen overnight. It was building quietly, slowly, right in front of me. And I didn't stop it. Not because I didn't care, but because I was too busy trying to keep everything together. Tell me honestly, how many times have you ignored your own pain just to keep peace? How many times have you stayed silent just to avoid conflict? Because you thought, if I just give a little more, if I just stay patient, if I just keep loving, everything will be okay. But sometimes it's not. And that truth, it hurts. I kept walking until I found a small place to sit. A quiet bench and no one around. And I sat there, finally letting my mind slow down. For the first time, I wasn't running from my thoughts, that I was facing them. And what I saw wasn't easy. I saw a version of myself that had been giving for too long, loving without limits, sacrificing without boundaries, and slowly losing herself in the process. That realization, it wasn't just painful. It was eye-opening, because I always thought I was doing the right thing. Being there. Helping, supporting. But I never asked, at what cost? At the cost of my peace? My identity? My self-respect? I had built my life around being needed, around being important to someone else. And when that was taken away, I felt like I had no value left. But here's the truth that hit me in that moment. Your worth is not defined by how much others need you. Let that sink in. Because if your value comes from being needed, then the moment someone stops needing you, you feel worthless. And that's exactly what I was feeling. I wasn't just hurt by what she said, that I was hurt because I didn't know who I was without that role. Who am I if I'm not her support system? Who am I if I'm not constantly giving? Who am I if I'm just me? That question scared me because I didn't have an answer. And for the first time in my life, I realized something deeply uncomfortable. I didn't know myself. I knew how to take care of others, that I knew how to sacrifice, that I knew how to stay strong, but I didn't know how to just be. That moment was the beginning of something new. Not healing. Not yet. But awareness. And awareness is where everything starts. Days passed, slowly, heavily. I wasn't living, that I was just going through time. Eating felt like a task. Sleeping felt like an escape. Thinking felt like a battle. And the hardest part? The thoughts didn't stop. Maybe I was the problem. Maybe I wasn't enough. Maybe I failed. These thoughts? They're dangerous, because they sound real, they feel real, but they're not the truth. They're pain speaking. Listen carefully. One person's anger does not define your entire life. One moment does not erase years of love. One sentence does not decide your worth. But when you're hurting, it feels like it does. I remember one afternoon, I walked into a small cafe that I hadn't eaten properly in days. Not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't feel like I deserved to. Yes, pain can do that. It can make you feel unworthy of even basic things. I sat there quietly, watching people around me, laughing, talking, living their lives. And I thought, how is the world still normal when my life feels completely broken? But that's the truth. The world doesn't stop, no matter what you're going through. And that realization, it can either make you feel more alone or push you to stand up. That day, something small happened, but it changed everything. The waiter came to my table, looked at me and simply said, "Are you okay?" Such a simple question, but I wasn't ready for it. Because no one had asked me that in a long time. Not genuinely. I didn't know what to say. Should I lie? Should I open up? Should I pretend? So I just nodded and said, "I'm fine." But deep inside I wasn't. And for the first time, I admitted it to myself. I'm not okay. And strangely, that felt like a release. Because healing doesn't start when you pretend to be strong. It starts when you accept that you're not. That moment was small, but powerful. Because it was the first honest conversation I had with myself. And from that moment something shifted, just a little, but enough. I stopped running from my feelings and started facing them. I allowed myself to feel the pain. Without judgment. Without guilt. Without trying to fix everything immediately. And that was the beginning of real change. But don't get it wrong, it wasn't easy. There were still nights I cried, still moments I felt weak, still times I wanted to go back just to escape the loneliness. Because familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar growth. But deep down, I knew something important. If I go back without changing, nothing will change. And that thought, it stopped me. So I asked myself a question, one that changed everything. If I don't stand for myself now, then when will I? That question stayed with me. Because for the first time, I wasn't thinking about anyone else. I was thinking about me. What do I need? What do I deserve? What kind of life do I want now? I didn't have all the answers. But I had something more important: awareness. And awareness is the first step to transformation. If you're listening right now, and you feel lost, broken, confused, I want you to understand something: you're not alone. And more importantly, you're not finished. This phase, it's not your ending. It's your turning point. But only if you choose to see it that way. Backhand index pointing right. If you're still here, type, "I'm still standing" in the comments, because staying, even when it's hard, is real strength. And trust me, what happened next is where everything started to change in a way I never expected. There was a moment. I almost went back. Not because things were fixed. Not because anything had changed, but because the silence started to feel louder than the pain I left behind. That's the part no one prepares you for. The loneliness. Not the kind where you're just alone, but the kind where you feel like no one understands you. I remember sitting one evening, phone in my hand, staring at her name. My finger was right there, point one tap away, point one call, away from going back. And my mind started whispering, maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe you overreacted. Maybe you should just go back and fix things. That voice, it's dangerous because it doesn't come as fear. It comes as comfort. And comfort can pull you back into the same pain you escaped. In that moment, there was a battle inside me. Not with my daughter, but with myself. One part of me said, go back. This is your family. You can't live like this. And another part, quiet but powerful, said, but what about you? That question hit differently because for the first time in my life I was being asked to choose myself. And I didn't know how to answer. You see, when you spend your whole life choosing others, choosing yourself feels wrong. It feels selfish. It feels uncomfortable. But here's the truth, it's not. It's necessary. I put my phone down, took a deep breath, and said something I had never said before, not this time. That moment it looked small from the outside. No one saw it, no one celebrated it. But inside me it was powerful. Because that was the moment I broke a pattern. The pattern of going back. The pattern of ignoring myself, the pattern of choosing pain over growth. And from that moment everything slowly started to shift. Days turned into a new kind of routine. Not the old routine of responsibilities and expectations, but a quiet, unfamiliar routine of self-awareness. At first it felt empty, like something was missing. And something was, the noise, the constant busyness, the feeling of being needed. But slowly that emptiness turned into space. And that space, it gave me room to breathe. For the first time in years, I could hear my own thoughts clearly, not the voices of others, not expectations, not pressure. Just me. And do you know what I realized? I had been ignoring myself for a long time, ignoring what I felt, ignoring what I needed, ignoring what I deserved. I was so busy being everything for everyone else that I forgot how to be something for myself. So I started asking questions, simple ones, but powerful. What do I want? What makes me feel peaceful? What kind of life do I actually want now? And at first, I didn't have answers. But instead of feeling lost, I allowed myself to explore. I started doing small things, walking without a destination, listening to music, not just hearing it, sitting in silence without trying to escape it. And those small things, they started changing me. Listen carefully, you don't rebuild your life in one big moment. You rebuild it in small, quiet decisions. One choice at a time. But don't think it was easy, because it wasn't. There were still days, very hard. Days. Days when memories hit suddenly, days when I missed her so much. It physically hurt. Days when I questioned everything again. Was I too harsh? Did I give up too easily? Should I have stayed longer? Those questions, they don't just disappear, they come back, again and again. But this time I didn't run from them. I sat with them. And I realized something powerful: missing someone does not mean you made the wrong decision. Let that sink in. Because many people go back not because it's right, but because they miss the feeling. But feelings can be misleading. Just because you feel lonely doesn't mean you should go back to a place where you felt unvalued. Just because you miss someone doesn't mean they treated you right. That realization, it gave me strength. I started writing things down. My thoughts, my feelings, my realizations. And one sentence I wrote stayed with me: I deserve peace even if it requires distance. I repeated that line to myself, especially on the days I felt weak. Because strength is not about never falling, it's about reminding yourself why you stood up. Slowly I started setting boundaries. Not just with others, but with my own mind. No more overthinking at night, and no more blaming myself for everything, and no more romanticizing the past. And that last one, it's important. Because when we're in pain, we only remember the good parts, that we forget why we had to walk away. But I didn't let myself forget. Not to hold anger, but to hold clarity. And that clarity, it became my anchor. Weeks passed, and something inside me changed. Not loud, not dramatic, but deep. I stopped asking, why did this happen to me? And started asking, what is this trying to teach me? That question, it changes everything. Because now you're not a victim of your story, you become a student of it. And every pain becomes a lesson. Every struggle becomes a step forward. Every lonely moment becomes a chance to grow. If you're listening right now, and you feel like you're in that phase, the confusing phase, the lonely phase, the rebuilding phase, I want you to understand something deeply. This is where most people give up. But this is also where the strongest people are built. Don't rush. This part, don't escape it, don't numb it. Feel it, learn from it, grow through it. Because what comes next will only make sense if you don't quit here. Backhand index pointing right. If you're still here, type I'm growing stronger in the comments, because staying committed to yourself is the biggest victory. And trust me, what happened next is where everything started to change in a way I never imagined. There was a time I would have gone back without thinking. No questions, no boundaries, no hesitation, just one call, and I would have returned to the same place, the same pain, the same version of myself. But something had changed now. Not loudly, not suddenly, but deeply. Because after everything I went through, the silence, the pain, the reflection, I was no longer the same person who walked out that day. I had seen myself, really seen myself. Not the version others expected. Not the version that kept everything together, but the real me. And once you see that truth, you can't unsee it. I remember waking up one morning and something felt different, not outside, inside. For the first time, my chest didn't feel heavy, my thoughts weren't racing. There was no immediate wave of sadness. There was just calm, and it surprised me because I didn't expect healing to feel like this. That I thought it would be loud, a big moment, a sudden transformation. But it wasn't. It was quiet, subtle, almost invisible. And that's when I understood. Healing doesn't announce itself. It happens in silence. But here's something important: peace can feel uncomfortable at first. Yes, uncomfortable. Because when you've lived in chaos for so long, peace feels unfamiliar, almost strange. Your mind starts questioning it. Why is everything so quiet? Is something wrong? What if this doesn't last? And without realizing it, you start looking for problems, even when there are none. That's how deeply we get used to pain. I had to learn something new. Something I had never practiced before: how to sit in peace without trying to escape it. Because before, I was always busy, always needed, always responding. But now I had space. And that space, it gave me room to rebuild. I started creating a new routine. Not based on responsibilities, but based on intention. I woke up for myself. Not because someone needed me, but because I needed me. I started taking care of my body, my mind, my emotions. Not out of obligation, but out of respect. And that shift, it changes everything. Because when you start respecting yourself, you stop accepting things that hurt you. You stop chasing people who don't value you. You stop explaining yourself to people who don't want to understand. You stop shrinking yourself to fit into someone else's expectations. And that's when I realized something powerful: I was no longer seeking validation. Not from my daughter. Not from anyone. And for someone who spent her whole life being needed, that was a big change. Because before, my worth depended on how others saw me. If they were happy, I felt worthy. If they were upset, I felt like a failure. But now, I was learning to stand on my own. And just when I thought I was finding my balance, life tested me again. One afternoon, my phone lit up. A message. Simple, short, but powerful enough to shake everything inside me. Mom, can we talk? In that moment, time slowed down. My heart started racing. My hands felt cold. My mind started spinning. All the memories came back. The pain, the words, the moment I walked out. And suddenly I was standing at a crossroads again. This is the moment where most people go back to their old patterns. Because when the past comes knocking, it brings familiarity. It brings emotion. It brings that pull you can't explain. And if you're not aware, you fall right back into it. But this time, something inside me stayed calm. I didn't rush to reply. I didn't let my emotions take control. I didn't react out of habit. I paused. And that pause, it was powerful. Because before, I would respond instantly out of love, out of fear, out of attachment. But now I responded with awareness. I asked myself, am I ready for this? Can I face this conversation without losing myself again? Can I stay true to who I've become? Because healing is not about avoiding people, that it's about facing them without losing your peace. I sat with that message for hours, not ignoring it, not running from it, just processing. And in that silence, I realized something important: I wasn't the same person anymore. I wasn't the one who would tolerate everything. I wasn't the one who would stay silent to keep peace. I wasn't the one who would break just to keep others comfortable. I had changed. And that meant, if I stepped into that conversation, it had to be different. Not emotional, not reactive, but grounded, clear, strong. So when I finally replied, it was simple, calm, intentional. Yes, we can talk. But behind those words was a completely different version of me. A version that had learned boundaries. A version that had learned self-respect. A version that had learned her worth. And in that moment, I understood something deeply: growth is not about becoming someone new. It's about returning to who you were before the world taught you to ignore yourself. If you're listening right now and you feel like you're changing, like you're outgrowing old patterns, old relationships, old versions of yourself, I want you to know you're not lost, you're evolving. Yes, it will feel uncomfortable. Yes, it will feel lonely. Yes, it will feel uncertain at times. But that's the price of growth. You can either stay the same and stay comfortable, or you can grow and face the discomfort that comes with it. But everything you want in life is on the other side of that discomfort. So don't run from it, don't avoid it, don't go back to what broke you. Stand your ground, protect your peace, choose yourself, again and again. Because what happened next, when we finally had that conversation, changed everything in a way I never expected. Backhand index pointing right. If you're still with me, type, I choose growth, in the comments. Because choosing growth is choosing a better life. And trust me, the next part is where everything comes full circle. When we finally talked, I knew one thing for sure. This conversation would either pull me back or prove that I had truly changed. I wasn't scared of her anymore, I was scared of losing myself again. The call connected. For a few seconds, no one spoke, just silence. But this silence was different. It wasn't cold like before. It was uncertain, careful, almost fragile. And then she said softly, Mom? That one word that it carried years of memories, love, pain, distance. But this time, I didn't let emotions take over. I stayed calm, present, grounded. Because I had learned something the hard way. You don't show your strength when everything is easy. You show it when everything inside you wants to break. She started speaking, not perfectly, not clearly, but honestly. I didn't understand. I was stressed. I felt like everything was falling apart. I listened, not to reply, not to defend myself, but to understand. And that changed everything. Because before we were both trying to be heard, now we were trying to understand. But listen carefully. Understanding someone doesn't mean forgetting what they did. And this is where most people make a mistake. They forgive quickly, they go back quickly, they ignore their own pain again. But I didn't do that. When it was my turn to speak, I took a deep breath, and I spoke with clarity. Not anger. Not emotion, just truth. I hear you, but you need to understand something too. There was silence again. But this time it was necessary. I gave everything I had, and somewhere along the way, I lost myself. My voice didn't shake, because I wasn't speaking from pain anymore, I was speaking from awareness. I love you, but I won't go back to being that person again. That moment, it was powerful. Because for the first time, I wasn't trying to fix everything, I wasn't trying to be needed, I wasn't trying to keep peace at the cost of myself. I was choosing me. And here's the truth, choosing yourself doesn't mean you stop loving others. It means you stop abandoning yourself. She didn't respond immediately, and that was okay. Because growth needs space, truth needs time to settle. We talked longer. Slowly, carefully, honestly. There were pauses, moments of emotion, moments where words didn't come easily. But something had changed, respect. Not perfect, not complete, but present. And sometimes that's where healing begins. But here's what most people don't understand. Healing doesn't mean everything goes back to the way it was. No, real healing means things will never be the same again. And that's a good thing. Because the same is what broke you. After that conversation, I didn't rush back, I didn't fall into old patterns, I didn't forget everything I had learned. I stayed where I was, emotionally, mentally, grounded. Because now I had something I never had before, boundaries, clear, strong, non-negotiable. And those boundaries protected my peace. Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months, and slowly our relationship started rebuilding. Not on dependency, not on guilt, not on sacrifice, but on understanding, respect, space. And that's the difference, because love without respect will always break you. But love with boundaries, it strengthens you. Today my life looks completely different. Not perfect, not without challenges, but peaceful. And peace is something I once thought came from others, from everything being okay around me. But now I know peace comes from within, from knowing your worth, from protecting your energy, from choosing yourself, no matter what. I smile more now. Not because everything is perfect, but because I'm finally okay with myself. I enjoy small moments, simple things, silence. Because I'm no longer running from myself. And that is the greatest freedom you can ever experience. If you're listening to this right now and you feel broken, rejected, unappreciated, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not a burden. You are not too much. You are not the problem. You are someone who gave love without limits and forgot to give some to yourself. But it's not too late, it's never too late. To rebuild your life, to rediscover your identity, to create a life where you feel valued, respected, and at peace. Yes, it will be hard. Yes, it will. Feel lonely at times. Yes, it will test you. But every step you take towards yourself is a step towards a better life. So stand up. Even if your voice shakes, even if your heart feels heavy, even if you're scared, stand up anyway. Because your story doesn't end in pain, that it transforms through it. And one day you'll look back at this moment, not as the day everything broke, but as the day everything changed. Backhand index pointing right. If this story touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear this, because your one share can be someone else's turning point. And if you want more real, deep, life-changing stories like this, make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Because this channel is not just about motivation, it's about transformation. It's about becoming the strongest version of yourself. Remember this, your pain has a purpose, your story has power, and your future is still waiting for you. Stay strong, stay true, and never forget, the moment you choose yourself is the moment your life truly begins.